These are the 7 levels of Fallout companies. Level 1. Trash companies. Welcome to the absolute bottom tier of Fallout's corporate landscape, where companies exist mostly as set dressing and flavor text. These are the brands you see on billboards, hear mentioned in holotapes, or find stamped on random junk littering the wasteland. Blamco is the perfect example here, basically the Kraft mac and cheese of the apocalypse. You'll find their packaged mac and cheese boxes everywhere from Fallout 3 onwards, providing a measly handful of hit points when consumed, but honestly, you're eating them more for the nostalgia than the healing. No quests, no lore revelations, just carbs in a box that somehow survived nuclear Armageddon better than most civilizations. These peripheral companies fill out the world, but here's the thing. Even these harmless brands tell you something dark about pre-war America. When your breakfast cereal is radioactive and your cleaning products are worthless junk, that's not accidental. That's an economy where safety regulations died decades before the bombs fell. And if companies at the bottom were already cutting corners this badly, imagine what the ones with actual power were doing. Spoiler, Level 2 tried to save people from nuclear war. The skeletons in their products tell you how that worked out. Level 2. Failed companies. Moving up a tier, we hit companies that actually have some personality and contribute meaningful items or locations, but still don't drive major storylines. These are the brands that make you go, oh yeah, I remember that place, instead of who. Pulowski Preservation Services deserves special mention for creating the most hilariously useless product in gaming history. Their preservation pods were basically phone booths marketed as budget nuclear shelters, costing only 500 caps compared to Vault-Tec's multi-million-dollar installations. The marketing promised nuclear protection on a budget, which technically wasn't false advertising since they did provide a budget, and they did exist during nuclear protection attempts. From a gameplay perspective, Pulowski pods occasionally contain minor loot and provide a tiny amount of cover during firefights, though their structural integrity is about as reliable as their nuclear protection claims. Some can be picked for locks worth 25 XP, and very rarely you'll find a cap stash or some chems inside. Vimpop shows up exclusively in Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC, where they were basically Maine's answer to Nuka-Cola before getting sabotaged into obscurity. The Vim Pop Factory is a full location you can clear out, fight through rust devils and turrets, and learn about their doomed rivalry with the bigger brand. You can mix Vim flavors using a special machine, creating Vim Captain's Blend, which provides 50 HP, 10 AP, and removes 400 rads, making it one of the better consumables in the game. Hornwright Industrial Mining dominates Fallout 76's Appalachia with their automated mining operations that definitely didn't cause any catastrophic problems. Their auto miners are these massive drilling robots that you can requisition and deploy to gather resources, functioning as mobile mineral extractors with a carry weight of 500 pounds. The Hornwright estate is a massive mansion that showcases exactly how rich mining executives got while their workers struggled. So Level 2 companies tried to help, but their products were either death traps, regional failures, or automation disasters that cost people their jobs. Incompetence mixed with greed. But here's where it gets interesting. These failures, they were accidents. The companies at Level 3 knew exactly what they were building. Chrysalis put nuclear bombs in every car. Sunset Sarsaparilla got crushed by corporate warfare. And when we talk about foot soldiers, we're talking about companies that armed the wasteland before it even became a wasteland. They flesh out regional differences and show that not every corporation operated nationwide. Some were regional powers that got overshadowed by the true giants. Level 3. Useful companies. Now we're getting into companies that actually matter to gameplay and world building, even if they're not headlining major storylines. These corporations supply essential gear, create iconic locations, or introduce concepts that stick with you. Chrysalis Motors deserves way more credit for shaping how the wasteland looks and functions. They created those bulky atomic-powered cars that explode like mini-nukes when you shoot them, dealing around 150-200 damage in a significant blast radius. This is both incredibly convenient for combat and absolutely insane from an engineering perspective. Imagine designing a civilian vehicle where the fuel tank detonates with nuclear force if ruptured. The Corvega is their flagship model, a massive sedan that defined pre-war automotive design with its chrome fins and completely impractical dimensions. Sunset Sarsaparilla is the western underdog to Nuka-Cola's corporate giant, showing up mainly in New Vegas with an entire treasure hunt questline. The Legend of the Star Quest has you collecting star bottle caps, the rare promotional items that Sunset Sarsaparilla distributed as a marketing gimmick. You need to find all the star caps and decode the trail of clues left by the promotional campaign. The payoff is meeting Festus, the cowboy robot mascot, and finding Alan Marks, the guy who won the original contest and murdered the other winners to steal their prizes. It's a brilliantly dark story about how corporate promotions can inspire actual murder. The prize itself is incredibly underwhelming, just some caps and a unique Sunset Sarsaparilla deputy badge, which somehow feels perfectly Fallout. Nuka-Cola eventually acquired Sunset Sarsaparilla in 2058, crushing the regional competition through sheer market dominance. This mirrors real-world beverage industry consolidation, where local brands get swallowed by international giants. These foot soldier companies gave you the cars you explode for combat, the drinks you chug for healing, and the facilities you raid for loot. essential, practical, profitable. But they were still just suppliers. Level 4 is where companies stopped making products and started playing God, and their specialty was creating things that should never have existed in the first place. Every time you see a rusted car or find a bottle of Sunset Sarsaparilla, these companies are contributing to your experience even if they're not driving the main plot forward. Level 4. Dangerous companies. Here's where we find companies that carved out specific niches and became absolutely dominant in their fields, creating iconic products or horrors that define entire gameplay systems. These aren't generalists. They're the best or worst at one particular thing. ArcJet Systems only appears in Fallout 4 but makes a hell of an impression with their aerospace facility where you help the Brotherhood of Steel grab a deep-range transmitter. They were working on the Mars Shot project, humanity's attempt to establish a Mars colony before nuclear war made Earth the red planet instead. Their facility features a working rocket engine test chamber that you actually activate during the quest, which is one of the cooler set pieces in the game. Repcon Aerospace takes the space race angle even further in New Vegas, giving you an entire facility full of feral ghouls and the Come Fly With Me quest to help non-feral ghouls literally launch themselves into space. Before Robco bought them out in 2076, they were major players in rocket propulsion and plasma weapons technology. The hostile takeover by Robert House was aggressive even by his standards, using financial warfare to absorb a competitor. Big MT is where Fallout goes full mad science horror show in the Old World Blues DLC for New Vegas. This think tank created nightmare fuel like Cazadores, those flying murder wasps that everyone absolutely despises with their 4 attacks per second and incredibly potent poison. Cazadores deal about 10 damage per sting, but apply a poison DOT effect that ticks for additional damage over time, making them disproportionately dangerous. Big MT's think tank scientists were so unethical, they literally removed their own brains and transferred consciousness into floating robot containers, becoming the think tank that runs the facility. This actually made them worse because they lost perspective on human limitations and just kept experimenting. Dr. Mobius, the villain of Old World Blues, is actually trying to contain them by keeping everyone trapped in the crater. Let me connect the dots here. Big MT created Cazadores and the Cloud as private corporate research. ArcJet covered up fatal accidents for Mars colonization contracts. Repcon caused radiation spills that created ghouls. These aren't rogue scientists in basements. These are companies with massive facilities, government contracts, and zero oversight, which means Level 5 isn't just bigger versions of this. Level 5 is where this became national policy, and one company at Level 5 is directly responsible for super mutants existing at all. Every super mutant you've ever fought, from the dumb brutes to the behemoths to the Master's Army, traces back to one corporation's military contract. And somehow they're still not the worst company in Fallout. The specialists went all in on mad science, but here's the crucial difference. Big MT, ArcJet, Repcon were contractors. They had clients. Level 5 companies weren't just contractors. They were the military-industrial complex itself, so deeply fused with the government that calling them companies is almost misleading. They were infrastructure. They were policy. And their mistakes didn't just affect one region. They reshaped the entire wasteland, creating weapons and monsters that players still complain about years later. Level 5. Military companies. Welcome to the big leagues where companies had massive influence over pre-war society, and their legacies still shape major questlines centuries later. These corporations were powerful enough to affect government policy, and their technology remains top tier. Poseidon Energy was basically the pre-war energy cartel, controlling everything from oil rigs to solar plants to experimental ultrasite mining in Appalachia. The Enclave used their oil rig platform as their base of operations, showing how deeply interconnected corporate and government interests had become. That oil rig, designated Control Station Enclave, contained full military facilities, housing, and research labs. Basically, a floating city. Helios 1 in New Vegas is their most visible legacy, a massive concentrated solar power plant that can be weaponized into a death ray called Archimedes 2. The facility uses an array of mirrors to concentrate sunlight onto a central tower, generating megawatts of power. If you complete the quest That Lucky Old Sun and reroute power to Archimedes, you get an orbital strike weapon that calls down a focused solar beam dealing massive damage in a target area. Their subsidiaries included Poseidon Oil and Poseidon Gasoline, vertical integration that gave them control over the entire energy supply chain. This monopolistic structure let them manipulate prices and policy, essentially holding the economy hostage. The company had executive connections to the Enclave, with high-level employees receiving preferential treatment for shelter access. West Tech is directly responsible for super mutants, which makes them arguably the most consequential company in Fallout history by body count alone. They developed the forced evolutionary virus, originally called the Pan-Immunity Virion Project, meant to create disease-resistant super soldiers. The project started in 2076 at the West Tech Research Facility in Southern California, with military funding and oversight. Stop and think about what we just learned. West Tech created the FEV that makes super mutants, but the virus was a military bioweapons contract contract, which means the government paid them to develop it. The experiments that destroyed countless lives were taxpayer-funded. This is the level where we stop talking about corporate greed and start talking about systemic corruption. When your government is paying companies to create monsters, the distinction between public and private sector becomes meaningless. And speaking of that blurred line, one Level 5 company literally provided the base for the Enclave, the shadow government that survived the war. Poseidon Energy's oil rig became Control Station Enclave, making them complicit in everything that faction ever did. Westech also developed the T-51 Power Armor series, which became the iconic armor of the Fallout series. The T-51B model specifically offers a 1000 defense rating in Fallout 4, with excellent ballistic and energy resistance. It requires fusion cores for operation, draining approximately 1 core per 20 minutes of use. The armor's servo-assisted strength enhancement lets users carry hundreds of pounds of equipment without encumbrance. General Atomics International put a robot in every home with their Mr. Handy series, creating those friendly floating butler bots that somehow survived 2 centuries. The basic Mr. Handy model has around 110 HP and uses a combination of saw blades and flamethrowers for weapons, making them surprisingly dangerous if hostile. They run on internal fusion reactors that apparently last centuries with minimal maintenance. Field marshals created super mutants, armed every robot in America, and powered civilization. That sounds like the top tier, right? How do you get more powerful than literally creating the wasteland's most iconic threat? Here's how. Level 6 companies didn't just shape pre-war America. They are pre-war America. Their technology is your game interface. Their products are your currency. And one man turned his Level 6 company into a dictatorship that survived 200 years by predicting the exact date of nuclear war, which raises an uncomfortable question. If Robert House could predict when the bombs would fall, what did the company at Level 7 know? And why were they so confident they'd survive it? They weren't just making products, they were defining how civilization functioned. Level 6, mega companies. Only 3 companies make it to this tier, the absolute titans that defined pre-war America, and whose influence reaches into every corner of every Fallout game. You literally cannot play this series without interacting with their legacies constantly. Robco Industries was Robert House's baby, the robotics and software monopoly that put terminals everywhere and manufactured the Pip-Boy devices that serve as your literal game interface. The company was founded in 2042 and grew through aggressive acquisitions, absorbing competitors until Robco dominated the market. House was such a ruthless businessman, he orchestrated hostile takeovers while developing revolutionary technology simultaneously. The unified operating system that Robco created runs on basically every computer terminal in the wasteland, from abandoned offices to military installations. This standardization means you can hack almost any terminal with the same skills, which makes sense from a corporate monopoly perspective. In reality, this would be a massive security vulnerability, but it makes for consistent gameplay mechanics. House's most impressive achievement was predicting the Great War's exact date and preparing accordingly. He calculated October 23, 2077 as the likely nuclear exchange date and prepared his defense systems, though they came online 24 hours late due to sabotage. After the war, he kept himself alive for over 200 years using advanced medical technology, running New Vegas from his Lucky 38 casino tower as an absolute monarch. The Pip-Boy is Robco's most ubiquitous product, the personal information processor that every Vault Dweller receives. The Pip-Boy 3000 model in Fallout 3 and 4 displays your stats, inventory, map, and radio functions on a cathode ray tube screen. It's supposedly built to last 100 years, but many units remain functional after 200, showing incredible build quality. The device interfaces with basically all pre-war technology via standardized ports. Technical specs on the Pip-Boy indicate it uses a custom operating system with modular software for different applications. The VATS targeting system is either a Pip-Boy feature or integrated with the user's perception. The lore is deliberately vague on this. Either way, it provides combat advantages by slowing time and calculating hit percentages on targeted body parts. Robco's Stealth Boy technology enables personal invisibility through a wrist-mounted field generator. The Stealth Boy 3001 model generates a modulating field that bends light around the user for roughly 2 minutes per charge. In gameplay terms, this makes you virtually undetectable while active, letting you bypass combat entirely or get critical sneak attack bonuses. The downside is limited duration and the fact that they're rare consumable items. The company's robot lineup includes Protectrons, those boxy security robots found everywhere. A basic Protectron has around 150 HP, uses laser weapons, and can be reprogrammed via nearby terminals. Their modular design allows for variants like construction Protectrons with grippers or police Protectrons with sirens. The standardized platform made them ubiquitous for security applications. iBots are Robco's recon drones, floating spheres with sensor arrays and speakers. EDE in New Vegas is a modified iBot with enhanced capabilities, and one of the best companion perks in the game, providing accuracy and damage bonuses. Standard iBots have minimal combat capability, but excel at surveillance and broadcasting messages. Sentry bots represent represent Robco's heavy combat platform, massive robots with galling lasers, missile launchers, and heavy armor plating. These things have 1000 plus HP in Fallout 4 and can shred you in seconds with sustained fire. The minigun arm alone dishes out hundreds of damage per second, making sentry bots legitimate boss-tier enemies. Robert House calculated October 23, 2077 as the nuclear exchange date with such precision that he almost saved New Vegas entirely. His defenses came online 24 hours late due to sabotage, but think about what that means. He knew, he prepared. He survived as a techno-dictator for 2 centuries because he saw it coming. Now here's the question that should terrify you. If House could predict the war, did other executives know too? And if they knew, why didn't they stop it? House's management of New Vegas after the war shows his vision for the future, a technocratic autocracy where he controls everything through robot armies and calculated deals. He upgraded the Securitron army with the Mark II OS, giving them grenade launchers, rapid-fire Gatling lasers, and missile racks. This transforms them from police bots into military units capable of overwhelming NCR or Legion forces. Nuka-Cola Corporation achieved what every beverage company dreams of, becoming so ubiquitous that their product survives as currency and addiction 200 years later. John Caleb Bradburton founded the company in 2044, building it into a soft drink empire that rivaled Coca-Cola's real-world dominance. The company's secret formula included 17 fruit flavors and was so closely guarded that only Bradburton knew the complete recipe. The standard Nuka-Cola restores 20 HP, 10 AP, and adds 5 rads. These stats make it a decent healing item early game, though the radiation accumulation becomes problematic. The bottles are everywhere because Nuka-Cola saturated the market through aggressive distribution deals and vending machine placement. You find bottles in homes, offices, military bases, literally everywhere people existed. Nuka-Cola Cherry adds a berry twist and provides slightly better stats, while Nuka-Cola Grape has its own flavor profile. The company constantly released new variants to maintain consumer interest and drive sales. This mirrors real-world beverage industry tactics where artificial scarcity and limited releases create demand. Nuka-Cola Quantum is the crown jewel, the glowing blue radioactive variant that Bradburton developed shortly before the war. Quantum contains a strontium-90 isotope that makes it glow and provides an energy boost, but also delivers 10 rads per bottle. In Fallout 4, it restores 50 HP and 20 AP, but those 10 rads add up fast. The glow is iconic enough that Quantum bottles are collectible quest items and crafting components. There's actually a contradiction in the timeline about when Quantum released. Some sources say it launched 3 years before the war, others suggest it was still in limited test markets when the bombs fell. This explains why Quantum is relatively rare compared to regular Nuka-Cola, though not as rare as it should be given its supposed limited release. Nuka World is the company's magnum opus, a massive amusement park in Massachusetts featuring themed zones, rides, and attractions all celebrating Nuka-Cola. The park includes Galactic Zone with space themes, Dry Rock Gulch with western themes, Safari Adventure, and Kitty Kingdom. Each zone has its own rides, shops, and environmental storytelling about pre-war consumer culture. The Nuka World DLC in Fallout 4 lets you explore this corporate monument to excess, now overrun by raiders divided into 3 gangs. The park features the Quantum Power Armor paint job, unique weapons like the Thirst Zapper, and bottles of every Nuka variant imaginable. It's basically Disney World filtered through Fallout's satirical lens, showing how corporations created entertainment empires. Bradburton himself ended up as a preserved head in a hidden vault beneath the park, kept alive by machines for 200 years. He begs you to kill him, having spent 2 centuries conscious but immobile, regretting his deal with the government for immortality. It's a perfectly dark ending for a character who represents corporate ambition, achieving his dream, and discovering it was a nightmare. Project Cobalt was Nuka-Cola's secret military contract, developing the Nuka Nuke and other weaponized applications of their products. This shows how deeply civilian corporations integrated with military R&D, using beverage chemistry knowledge for weapons development. The Nuka Grenade is a craftable weapon that deals significant explosive and radiation damage. The Nuka-Cola Corporation represents consumerism taken to its absolute extreme, where marketing matters more than safety and addiction is just good business strategy. The company hired researchers to study consumer behavior, conducted taste tests, and refined their formula to maximize repeat purchases. This is standard corporate practice pushed into satirical territory. Finding a Nuka-Cola Quantum feels special because Bethesda made these drinks function as collectibles beyond healing items. Various quests require specific Nuka variants. Vendors pay premium prices for rare bottles, and some recipes need specific flavors. This transforms random loot into treasured finds, making exploration rewarding. Robco controlled technology through monopoly. Nuka-Cola controlled culture through addiction. Both companies made pre-war America dependent on their products, and both survived the apocalypse through sheer market saturation. But here's what separates Level 6 from Level 7. Robco and Nuka-Cola needed the world to survive because they needed customers. Level 7 didn't need customers. They needed test subjects. And when you're running experiments that require societal collapse, waiting for the apocalypse apocalypse becomes bad for business. So, why wait? Every hacked terminal reinforces Robco's monopoly. Every Nuka-Cola bottle reminds you of pre-war consumer culture. Level 7? God companies. Level 7 is Vault-Tec Corporation. And before I explain why they're the apex predator of corporate evil, let me answer the question we never did from the beginning. Did Vault-Tec start the nuclear war? The TV series gives us executive Barb Howard, literally proposing it in a boardroom meeting. Her exact pitch was that Vault-Tec could be the last people in America, maybe the world, and monopolize Reconstruction. She wasn't waiting for the apocalypse. She was scheduling it. Now, whether that's show canon, game canon, or both, remains deliberately ambiguous. But here's what's not ambiguous. Everything else, they did. Vault-Tec Corporation isn't just the most important pre-war company. It's the foundational pillar that the entire Fallout franchise is built upon. Vault-Tec won the Project Safehouse contract in 2054 to build 122 nuclear shelters, and then weaponized that responsibility into the most disturbing social experiments imaginable. The contract was worth hundreds of billions of dollars, with individual vaults costing astronomical amounts. Vault 13 alone cost $645 billion according to some estimates, though inflation and pre-war economic chaos make these numbers somewhat meaningless. Only 17 were actual control vaults meant to legitimately save people and serve as baseline data. The rest were psychological torture chambers disguised as salvation, each designed to test different variables. Vault 106 pumped psychoactive drugs into the air supply 5 days after sealing, driving residents insane to study mental breakdown under isolation. Vault 43 put 20 men, 10 women, and 1 panther together just to see what would happen, which is so deliberately cruel it borders on parody. Vault 11 made residents vote annually to sacrifice someone or everyone dies, creating a democracy-based death cult. This went on for years, until only 5 residents remained and chose to die rather than continue. Except the Vault didn't actually kill them, because the real experiment was seeing if they'd rebel. Vault 92 was designed to create super soldiers through subliminal messaging and music, which predictably went wrong. Vault 108 cloned a guy named Gary hundreds of times, and all the clones could only say Gary. The technical specifications of vaults are actually impressive despite the horrific experiments. Each vault features reinforced lid casing capable of withstanding direct nuclear strikes, geothermal power systems that function indefinitely, water purification systems, and hydroponics farms for food production. The average vault can sustain roughly 1,000 residents for at least 10 years, with control vaults designed for indefinite operation. Vault doors weigh tons and use massive gear mechanisms for sealing, creating the iconic entrance aesthetic. The door mechanics provide radiation shielding and security against external threats, though internal threats are where things get messy. Some vaults have external controls, others can only be opened from inside, and several have time locks preventing early exit. The GECK, or Garden of Eden Creation Kit, was Vault-Tec's terraforming device meant to help survivors rebuild civilization. Technical documentation describes it as containing seed stalks, soil bacteria, fertilizer, and construction materials. In gameplay, it's usually a quest MacGuffin, but in Fallout 2, you actually use one to purify Project Enclave's water supply, though this might be non-canonical now. The lore around whether Vault-Tec actually started the Great War gets strongly hinted at in the TV series. Executive Barb Howard proposed starting nuclear war themselves because waiting for inevitable Armageddon was bad for quarterly profits. She literally said they could be the last people in America, maybe the world, and monopolize Reconstruction. That's capitalism so evil it loops back around to being impressive in its audacity. The Enclave's involvement with Vault-Tec is extensively documented, with government officials having access to Vault data and using it for their own continuity of government plans. Many high-ranking executives and government officials received guaranteed Vault spots or Enclave placement, showing the corruption at society's highest levels. Every single Fallout game starts because of Vault-Tec. Whether you're leaving Vault 13 searching for a water chip in Fallout 1, escaping Vault 101's despotic overseer in Fallout 3, or discovering your spouse was murdered while you were frozen in Vault 111 in Fallout 4. New Vegas starts slightly differently since the courier isn't a Vault dweller, but Vault technology and Vault-Tec's legacy still permeates the game. The Pip-Boy you use as your interface was contracted through Robco, but branded as Vault-Tec equipment, making it the most intimate way the corporation touches gameplay. Every time you check your stats, manage inventory, or use VATs, you're interfacing with Vault-Tec's vision of information management. If you enjoyed this video and want to see 7 levels of Fallout power armor, click the video on the screen.